NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome into another edition of the Victory Sports Network. I am your host, Jason Dannelly, and this is NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got an awesome show lined up for you here tonight because you might hear some rants tonight. You might hear some pontificating. You might hear some things that maybe you don't like. Maybe you're going to love it. It depends what side of the argument that you're going to be on. We're going to talk about a lot of things tonight. We had some big ones in the top 25. We had some big upsets in the top 25. And we had some games go, well, not really the way that we were expecting them to go. We're going to talk about all that, plus preview next weekend's games, as well as maybe take a little bit of an extended look at how things are standing in the world of NAIA football. At this moment, I bring in my partner in crime, my friend, my buddy, my pal, a guy that coached a whole bunch of football, knows a whole bunch of football. He teaches me things, and then I pass it off to you as if I know what I'm talking about. He is Pat Donley. Hi, Pat.
You know, it's so funny. I've been out for 3 years. I think I'm forgetting so much stuff. So I gotta stay sharp, man. I gotta stay sharp. Gotta keep watching the game. Had to watch all 22 film of a game, a big game. Luckily, I got some access. We'll get into that here in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's
my anger.
Yes, and some of the blame I'll take myself. I'm going to have to be proactive. I'm going to have to not rely on just some of the streams that are out there if we want to try to get down and dirty with some of these games. But no, Pat, you said like you've been out 3 years. You think you forgot a lot. You like my brain has gone back to just like normal college football fan. When I started VSN, I was like fresh out of the womb playing football, like breaking down defenses, looking at things. And then I had to get so much more into the rest of the world of, work and all that stuff. I had to start forgetting that stuff. So, credit to you to actually get an additional 20 years of like experience doing it before you stepped out of it.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. But, I love watching the game. I can still pick out things, of course, but I think the organizational things and how the game's evolved, I'm very impressed. And I'm really impressed with watching our affiliation and how they play and how these offenses are structured and the exotic things the defenses do. So I think the game is in a great place. And we'll talk about some of the technology and the challenges that we face to watch these games. But yeah, it was a good weekend. I mean, it was obviously lean because of some conferences taking time off. And of course the horrible hurricane in Florida, prayers out to those folks and just terrible, some games, canceled or postponed, probably not going to be, rescheduled, but interesting week. We'll jump into
the least of our worries that Kaiser, Southeastern, Florida Memorial, and Warner didn't get to play football this week. We're just grateful from all accounts. Everything I've heard from those campuses, things are still getting along just fine. All things considered. So the more important thing there, we love football, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure everybody is safe and sound, and we don't lose anybody out there. So. With that said, we move on. Your comments, as always, are welcome in the feed. We'll get to your questions. We'll open things up later on in the show. But, Pat, we need to start off with the big games that happened this week in the world of NAIA football. And, there were two games that I had as featured games this week. And I kind of said, keep your eye on what's happening there. And, I'll get to the other one. We'll talk about Lindsey Wilson Cumberland's first. Lindsey Wilson Cumberland's kind of what I thought might happen in this game. Cumberland's getting the game at home. They got out early. They held on late. They were up 15-14, got that little bit of extra insurance with a field goal late in this game, came away with the victory at home. So number 24, Lindsey Wilson, picks up their second loss of the year. They've now lost to Texas Wesleyan, who is rated 14th, I believe, this week. And now Cumberland's, who improves to 4-2, who has battled in so many games this year, Pat. They just weren't able to get over the hump against Reinhardt and a couple other squads. But now, things starting to come together for Coach Shan Housekeeper and the Patriots down in Williamsburg.
Yeah, we think it's a good football team. We've watched them, throughout this season already, and Coach Housekeeper is doing some great things down there. And Cumberland is always good at home. It's always been that way. It's a great environment there down in Southern Kentucky, and it's just a beautiful setting. And they're always tough to play there. And this is an interesting game. Two teams that are right on that cusp. And Cumberland's, I'm not sure. I'm sure they're receiving votes, or they're in that the talk of the top 25. So we think that this is a quality football team, and it's good for them to win and beat a ranked football team against Lindsey Wilson. Somewhat of a rivalry that's been built the last handful of years. So I'd like to watch this game, but I didn't because you couldn't. Did we go there yet?
Not yet. We're going to say that a few more times. We're going to say that a few more times. But Cumberland gets the victory, really messes things up a little bit in the Mid-South Conference, because we go to the next game. Bethel, who was sitting undefeated, I probably jinxed them. I said, I'm starting to believe. I'm starting to believe.
You're a mush.
I shouldn't have believed yet. I could have beat my chest for 6 weeks and then said, see, I told you. But Cumberland, a very well-played game by the Phoenix here. They come away with the 21-14 win at home. They improved to 5-1. Their quarterback, Luke Holloway, with 136 yards through the air, 96 yards on the ground, couple touchdowns. Bethel limited to 268 yards in this game, Pat. A very nice win for Cumberland, who you kind of wondered early on, are they getting these wins because their competition isn't that good, or are they an improved team? Well, this knocked off the top 5 team in the NAIA.
No doubt. And their only loss to, I'm the biggest fan of the Campbellsville Tigers.
Your Campbellsville Tigers.
My Campbellsville Tigers. I love them.
Yeah.
Give me some more Jagger, and, I'm on board, man. I love the old Fighting Tigers of Campbellsville. So, yeah, this is a huge win. One of the biggest that, Cumberland has had in years, knocking off a top 5. And, you've said all along, Jason, you had some you're skeptical of the doubts, of the Bethel Wildcats. You're like, I don't know, something there. They got to show me more. Mm-hmm. And they had a big victory last week, and then sure enough, just when you think they may have arrived or meeting expectations, here we go. But the Phoenix are good. Cumberland is good. We know Campbellsville's good. 2 undefeated teams going out last week, and they turn around after a loss and come back and beat a top 5. So to me, that shows a heck of a lot if you're Cumberland.
Yeah, Cumberland, 384 yards of total offense. Campbellsville had the recipe against them last week, limit their ability to run. They kept them under 200 yards, 248 yards rushing in this game for the Phoenix, and that's the big thing. I mean, some of these teams, you'd like to have a perfectly balanced offense where you get in a week and, okay, we're going to rely more on the pass, we're going to rely more on the run. And Cumberland is one of those teams that is a little bit more run heavy, so if you take that opportunity for them to run away, then they're going to get into, a situation like last week. Bethel was unable to do that this week. They gave up the run, and it resulted in a victory for the Phoenix. So a very nice win. Really muddies the waters in the Mid-South Conference, because we were talking beginning of the season, hey, Georgetown coming off a Final Four appearance. Lindsey Wilson, man, they were just held out of the postseason. Bethel, they were a very good squad last year. They graduated a bunch of people, but you trust kind of what the coaching staff is doing there to get back. And it turns out, if you just look at record, it's 2 teams we didn't even talk about at the beginning of the season, in Cumberland and Campbellsville leading the way. So congratulations to those squads. Still a lot of football left to be played in the Mid-South Conference. We move on to this game. This was a football game, and it did not go the way that I think Indiana Wesleyan fans would have told you, we're going to beat them. We'll beat them soundly. Yeah. There wasn't an Indiana Wesleyan fan saying we're going to beat them like 77-20. Nobody was thinking that. This game spiraled out of control from the get. You were able to actually watch this game. I was not able to watch this game.
No, I had to use some connections to get some film. I did see the coaches all 22, which is even better because I've got different views and seeing all 22 players involved in each play. This was interesting, to say the least. At Marian, rivalry game, 2 top 10 teams. It started from the very jump. First play of the game, 46-yard run, kind of got things going for Indiana Wesleyan. They flex some muscle, Jason. They are physical. They run the ball exceptionally well. Good at the line of scrimmage. Very, very strong. got physical running backs, and Kyle Antoine is coming into his own. I'm telling you, seeing my, live streams are great, and we'll get into that whole rant here in a second. But going off the all 22 tape, the coach's film, and really evaluating things, I love this guy. And I tell you what, and I'm not trying to be negative here in saying this. He's not a very tall guy. He's kind of a sawed-off 5'10". He's a stocky kid. He's a thick kid. He's got good feet, though, for being kind of a stockier kid. He's maybe 5'10", maybe. But I tell you what, great decision maker, throws a really lively ball, throws a good deep ball. I am very impressed with him, and he's gotten better each week I've watched him. So kind of going into the game, let's break this thing down as I watched it. It started from the very beginning, just with physicality. I don't know if Indiana Wesleyan even punted, Jason. I don't know.
Once. I went back through the play-by-play once late in the game. They punted.
Late in the game. So you're talking first possession, clockwork down there in the red zone pretty quickly, and within 3 plays in the red zone score. I think Marian answers back with a score, so it's 7-7.
Yep.
Indiana Wesleyan gets the ball back, boom, march down the field, boom, score. Get to 20-7. So their third possession, Wesleyan scores, make it 20-7. I think they missed the extra point, 20-7. Kind of a pivotal call that really kind of the wheels fell off for Marian. And I love Coach Karras, good friend, just awesome guy that I just admire the heck out of. Made kind of an emotional decision, 20-7. It's like 4th and 11, 4th and 12, right about midfield for Marian. They decided to go. Got to make something happen. Yeah, it's an emotional, kind of call. Like, you're frustrated because you're getting beat 20-7. You're not playing great. So he makes a call. Probably should have been a pass interference call to give Marian a new set of downs on that 4th down call. No call. Coach Karras comes unglued, ends up getting a penalty. So now it changes possession. Indiana Wesleyan gets the ball back. Now they're in their plus territory, in Marian territory, up 20-7, and boom, score. So now they go for 28-7, and it kind of spirals from there. But with that being said, they won the football game in every facet. I'm going to tell you right now, this is the key thing. I'm going to be Mr. Cliche football guy here. They won the game at both lines of scrimmage. I mean, as cliche and silly as that is, when you get right down to it, I don't care what era of football it is. It can be from the 40s to the 70s to present day. If you're good on both sides of the line of scrimmage and win that battle, you have a pretty darn good shot. And you couple that, so winning both lines of scrimmages and then good quarterback play, you got a pretty good shot. And that's what Indiana Wesleyan did. I was very impressed with their defensive performance as well, the pass rush. So obviously Marian's in a situation they've got to coming from behind and having to throw a lot more than they certainly want to in this game. And the pass rush took over. I mean, they were really getting after the quarterback. But I'm very impressed with this Indiana Wesleyan team. I think they're as good as I have seen. We talk about Kaiser. I love St. Thomas. I love all the teams out west. But Indiana Wesleyan, I'm very, very impressed with. They just have to keep this consistency. Because I'm going to bring this up again. And I probably shouldn't. It's probably a little premature. The Valpo thing just drives me crazy.
It does.
Crazy. Like, I am just like, it. Honestly, it pisses me off because they're really good. Like, that does not make any. Valpo's 2-4, Jason.
Yes.
It drives me crazy because I watched this team, all 22, beat a top 10 team handedly. Like, it was just, anything they wanted to do, they executed. I was frustrated. This should be an undefeated football team. This should be a team. I know it's a FCS. I don't go into that whole thing, but
yeah. Well, the former president,
they're real good, man. They're real good.
The former president is checking in. Mr.
Really? Hey.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Is Indiana Wesleyan that good, or is Marian that bad? I always hate when people are like, are they that bad? No, okay, they played a bad game, 100%. They played a bad game. They probably, if it was this old school tape, Coach Karras might be taking that VHS out to the football field, digging a hole, burying it, and lighting it on fire. Can't do that to a hard drive. You're going to lose a lot of things. But I don't think Marian is a bad football team. I think they got caught in a bad situation, and I think Indiana Wesleyan, they're really good. They're much improved. Well, I shouldn't say much improved. They were really good last year too. They got banged up late in the season. They're cruising around. They're cruising along, and I'm like you, Pat. That Valpo loss, it probably doesn't sting me as much as you. because I just whatever, you know, it was one of those games, but it's still a loss. And if anything, you know, kind of bolsters that team to go in the right direction. Now,
and, you know, the thing that's going to hurt them, Jason, here's the thing. And I don't know if the top two will ever lose. I don't know this season. I mean, we could have literally those two be undefeated the entire time. Indiana Wesleyan stays at 3, but you never know. And here's the thing, that Valpo loss, I think, does hurt them down the road, because if they would, you know, move up to 2, they're going to host the entire way. And that's a huge deal. They have an unbelievable home field advantage. And it's so funny. This reminds me, I know Coach Rhodey came from Morningside, the Steve Ryan, you know, coaching tree, all of that. I get that. They remind me so much of them, certainly schematically. But, like, I will tell you right now, and I'm going to be completely honest, and I'll probably piss some people off back in the old St. Francis days. We were so lucky drawing Morningside. After they lost a few, like, games during the season. They dropped a game to, like, Wisconsin Whitewater. So Division III team. Now, mind you, Wisconsin Whitewater, this is Lance Leopold years. You're talking you know, really, really good teams, you know, competing for national titles. But we were so fortunate that Morningside would drop that game, because here we are, both essentially would have been undefeated. Morningside drops that game. So guess what? They come to us, and we host Morningside in the playoff, and that makes all the difference. That home field advantage, I'm certain, gave us an advantage beating Morningside in 2016 and 2017.
100%. I think he did tell us the same thing last spring when we talked to him. You can go back and look at that interview for anybody thinking that we're lying to you. Why would we lie to you? No, I'm with you, Pat, because the thing I look at, and I don't know all of the coaches' raters, all the coaches' raters for the coaches poll. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know every one of them super well, but I know a bunch of them really well, that regardless of what Grandview does the rest of the year, because Kaiser's won. Kaiser could lose, Grandview could lose, but let's just say everything plays out. I know Indiana Wesleyan fans are going to want to beat the table and say, look at what we did to a top 10 team. Look at what we did here. But you lost to Valpo. And coaches are going to look at that and go, well, you dropped a game to Valpo. Why should we punish Grandview, who we thought was better than you to start the year? Why should we punish them when they have ran the table in their conference and they're undefeated? So it could come back to bite them. Home field advantage, potentially for one game, if it all works out and we get to the semifinals and they play one another, and that could be huge. But we are a long ways from that. Next week we'll be saying, well, remember all that stuff we said last week? It didn't matter because so-and-so got upset.
I don't see how Indiana Wesleyan loses another game, Jason. I just don't see how, unless they just lay an egg like they apparently did against Valpo. But they are – here's the thing, it's even crazier. And again, I don't want to keep harping on this. Indiana Wesleyan substitute wholesale change within the early third quarter of this game, which is, again, for a top 10 game, a top 10 matchup. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they still scored points against Marian's ones. I was blown away by that. And I'm telling you, Jason, they've got dudes behind the dudes. I mean, some impressive looking players, receivers. There's a pack of quarterback. My goodness, the NAIA, most of the NAIA would kill for. They've got some players. There's something cooking there. And we've talked about it forever. You know, I went to that first game against St. Francis. We're like, oh boy, they got something there. And I do think they're improving, with that one exception of the darn Valpo game. But
got to bring this comment up, because I will disagree. You know, Grandview has the worst schedule. They don't play anybody. One could argue Indiana Wesleyan doesn't play anybody. They've just beat everybody that's on their half of the conference, and those teams aren't very good. And you could make that argument. I'm not making that argument, but you can't say Grandview doesn't play anybody when they went on the road to Benedictine and beat Benedictine 52-28 at Benedictine, like the second week of the year. And Benedictine, let's not forget, in the opening week, knocked off Morningside. So you can't say, oh, Grandview doesn't play anybody. Well, actually do that. Because I know somebody will feed that to Coach Woodley, and that will just make this so much more fun.
Sure.
So much more fun.
But we did talk about this, Jason. You know, Grandview, we played them a ton. I have coached against Grandview multiple times. Not only in the playoffs when they joined the Heart, but before that, they were part of the Mid-States. Where these, you know, back in the day, I do think they were more prepared playing the Mid-State schedule. I would say that. But with that being said, you're right. They're playing the teams that are in the Heart, and they're beating them. And we do think the world of Benedictine. You know, we think Baker's pretty darn good. At the same time, I don't know. We talked about, are they seasoned for the playoffs because they do have some clunkers in there. That's fairly
Yeah.
easy for them to go blow out.
Yep.
And you look at, let's look at the Frontier. We're going to hit that again.
Yeah.
Each and every week, you're building something there. You have to strap it up every single week. And I think the mid-states, for the most part, is the same way. I don't think the depth of the quality of the Frontier this year. But overall, in the history of the NAIA in the last at least 20, 25 years, you can certainly say that those teams get prepared for the postseason. Where I think Grandview, you got to get up for a couple games a year. And I think that is a point that the commenter made that is valid. At the same time, it's your schedule. It's who you have. You can't just hey, midseason, hey, we're going to drop that team that's 0-5 and let's pick up somebody else. It doesn't work that way.
And the number one thing, and we have to take it a little bit step back, that this is not Division I football. This is not the Big 12. Where we're talking about strength of schedule. The number one thing of importance for NAIA football teams, for NAIA basketball teams, is to be in a conference where they can consistently get schedules, they can consistently get good games, they can consistently have a conference championship and have all those things. And that's why Grandview went to the Heart. They did not have that. They're an outstanding institution in terms of, liberal arts education, small college, in a great community, but they were in a conference that was a mess. And their choices were, join the Heart or join the GPAC. GPAC, probably a little bit too much travel. You're going to get a North-South division with the Heart Conference there, and that's where we're at. So I won't get too far in a diatribe here because
What were they in basketball, Jason? I'm sorry. Like all the other sports.
I believe it was called the Midwest Classic at the time, and then I can't remember because this was kind of when I was away and it was basketball, so I kind of stopped paying attention. They may have flirted for a year in the Chicagoland. And playing like for Turbo and St. Xavier. I don't think they were in that Midwest Classic Conference that Clark was in, that St. Ambrose was in.
That's an athletic department decision for them to go to the Heart, which does make sense. And certainly geographically, too. I'll tell you right now, Des Moines to Fort Wayne was like 9 hours, and that's not an easy trip. No. Now those East and West crossover games, even the Chicagoland, Des Moines to Chicago is still, I'm guessing, 5. Yeah. It's a good drive. So I think the Heart, I would think, is probably a little better travel for them overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I can get from Minneapolis to Kansas City in less than 7 hours, and Grandview is halfway down on that trip. So figure out the math from there. I'm not smart. I don't read. I'd have to Google it anyway. We will move on. Some of this conversation is like going to cut into our overtime conversation, Pat, where we can just
there's not many games, Jason.
Go on a diatribe. There was only 26 games.
How many games?
So we're going to stretch here a little bit. Guess what? Another big game in the Frontier Athletic Conference, another game that went down to the wire, and another game that was won by the home team of one of these great Frontier Conference games. Montana Western comes away with the victory 27-21. A big defensive performance from Montana Western's Braden Schwenk. He had 2 interceptions, one of them a little inconsequential. He got the pick, and then the Bulldogs went and turned the ball over, but interception in the end zone to take points off the board from Montana Tech, kind of hold them away from a victory here. And Montana Western back on those winning ways in the top 10. Palandry, 238 yards passing, rushed for 79 yards. They got a little bit more of a run game going in this one, Pat. Jake Humphrey, something that we kind of talked about with the Bulldogs a couple weeks ago, where, gosh, they really need to develop that run game. Jake Humphrey, 15 carries, 97 yards in a big game against Montana Tech. The Bulldogs righted the ship, and as they should have, they were the home team against another highly rated Frontier Conference game. That's been the way that they've all gone this year.
Kind of crazy, isn't it? The home team. But there's so many quality teams. I think Palandry seems like he's improving and getting better, each and every game. I know he's played a lot of games and started a lot of games with the Bulldogs, but it seems like he's getting more consistent and better. And like you said, that run game is crucial. They're spread out. They want to be, a quick strike offense, throw the football quite a bit, but you have to have that balance, especially we're getting here into mid to late October. The weather's going to change up in that region. So I think a run game is essential. You talk to the Morningsides and the Northwesterns, the teams that love throwing the football, but I tell you what, you look at their running game, it is an important key element for those teams winning national championships and making a deep playoff run. And I think Western has to develop that. It looks like they're making an effort to do that. And again, it's one of those things where you got to take what people give you as well. But if there's advantageous run scenarios with numbers in the box. You got to be able to do that. And it looks like the Bulldogs are doing that. We are going off of this based upon like ground level highlights from the local news station in Dillon, I think, if there is one, or somewhere in the region there. That's all we have to go off of.
Yeah.
So
we'll roll into that in a second. I do want to say Montana Tech, this is, you hate to say it's a good loss because it's their second loss of the year. If you're Montana Tech, you're not thinking this is a good loss, but you lost on the road. You had an opportunity, a couple interceptions from Thielen in this game gives the Bulldogs an opportunity to, put points on the board again. Lander Smith over 160 yards rushing in this. So Montana Tech right there where they need to be. Very interesting in the Frontier Conference. We talk about Western, we talk about Tech, we talk about Southern Oregon, we talk about College of Idaho. If you look at the Frontier Conference standings, leading the way, Carroll College is undefeated. So, when it comes down to what really matters to get that automatic bid, all these teams that we keep talking about, technically, you've got nothing to say about it. Carroll College is in the driver's seat.
How about that?
But Carroll College hasn't played any of these teams in a conference game. They've lost to Montana Tech. That was a non-conference game. They will play again later this year. But Pat, it brings up a great transition before we go into our games of the week. And this is a little bit of a diatribe, a little bit of a rant that we're going to go on here. And I'll just start off to say I love NAIA football. I came back to do this because I missed it. This has been a part of my life since the fall of 1996 when my brother went to play at Dana College. And then I joined him in the fall of 98. And then I started the Victory Sports Network in 2001. And the technological advances that we have made to make covering these games from a national perspective better have been immense. They've been fantastic. They've made things so much easier. But what we're starting to run into is the ability to actually cover these games, because you can only watch so many games at one time. If you have any sort of family stuff going on, which Pat and I, guess what? We both have family things that go on. It is very advantageous for us to be able to go back and watch these games after the fact. And a lot of times they were available. They were archived on Huddle. You could watch it. They were out there on YouTube. You could watch it. But that's not been the case so much. Or, and this is a pet peeve, I will pay $10 for a top game. But if that top game isn't archived where I can go back and watch it later, there's nothing I can do. Pat, you had some strong feelings as well.
No question. I mean, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna give you a minute long story of, you talk about technology and how it's changed. So I started coaching. I was an NAIA coach in 2004. Jason, I swear to you, we used to trade game film VHS tapes with our opponents. I'm not joking. We'd have a rendezvous point, or we would, if we got late enough in the season, we would actually mail out, the scheduled opponents film ahead of time. Then you get the last game and you send that out. They get it a day later, whatever it was. Or like the playoffs, like I distinctly remember myself as a young coach having to make a rendezvous point with opponents to literally hand exchange VHS tapes. I'm not joking.
Mm-hmm.
So that started in 2004. And then we got really advanced. We started exchanging DVDs about, mid to late 2000s. Now everything is digital. Let's be honest with this whole thing. Technology has come so far in really a short amount of time, at least for me, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy though that we have these services. And I will say I think we've sung the praises. I think we've done, and we're very honest about that. We're not sugarcoating it. I think some of these schools do a wonderful job of live streaming. And there's a great, play-by-play and color analysts doing a great job. Heck, sideline reporters. Some of these broadcasts are brilliant. Just archive the darn thing.
Yeah.
Please, for us. I mean, it's one of those things that's very frustrating. And again, they don't owe us anything. I understand that. We're not that self-important, but we want to be out there covering these games and providing, as much in-depth with our time and analysis as much as we possibly can. And we can't do that without watching the games. I mean, stats can tell you so many things. And it is frustrating. So I don't know. We got to find a plan B here, Jason. I don't know if it's talking to some of these coaches about maybe sending us some video or we know enough folks, hopefully.
Well, my thing, so I'm a marketing guy at heart. That's, I primarily my job right now is in sales and management, but my background starting the Victory Sports Network, a lot of the things I've done for my current company have been in the world of marketing. And I look at this as an opportunity for the NAIA to grow its brand, for the individual schools to grow its brand. And I'm not saying through me, like through the Victory Sports Network, like, yeah, there's some people obviously watching this stream right now in which we're talking about some teams they don't normally know. We're growing it a little bit, but the opportunity for the schools to grow their brand by having their games out there for people to watch. Because guess what? When your game was going on at 1 o'clock on Saturday, Alabama was playing. When your game was going on at 3 o'clock, Minnesota UCLA was playing. I know some people go, Minnesota UCLA. Guess what? There were 78,000 people at that game. 78,000 football fans at that game. And I would be willing to bet a couple of them, if they knew there was a great small college game that we were able to promote and talk about, would go back and say, oh, some crazy stuff happened in that Indiana Wesleyan Marian game, a top 10 game. They beat them by 50. Well, let me check that out. And I am all for, teams being able to make money off this. We gotta protect the pocketbooks of the schools out there and give them an opportunity, but let's find a way to grow the brand. Here's
another point I have, Jason. Think about it. I think the Marian Indiana Wesleyan had to have 6,000 or 7,000 people there. I mean, it's a huge game in this region where I live. Do you tell me the Indiana Wesleyan folks don't want to go? The parents don't want to watch that game that night, with their sons. Maybe they're going to take them back to dinner in Marian, Indiana, or whatever. And hey, let's go back to your dorm room or wherever we're staying. Let's rewatch that game, man. And you can't do it.
Yeah.
No,
it's frustrating, and we use that as an example just because that's what happened this week. This has happened multiple weeks where Pat and I pre-show or post-show go, well, yeah, I'd like to talk more about that game, but they wanted me to pay $15 for it, and it wasn't going to be archived, so I was literally going to be able to watch 6 minutes of the game at that time because I had things going on. Like, I can watch all sorts of NAIA football games post 8 o'clock on a Saturday night and pre 9 o'clock on a Sunday before family day. I can rip through 6-7 games pretty quickly, but if they're not out there, especially on a short week like this, normally what I would do, Pat, be like, well, I'll watch another one. We'll feature that. There just weren't that many games to feature this week. So that's our rant.
Yep.
That's our rant. We're not mad at you. We want you to help us be able to see great NAIA football. Because, and again, if I have to pay for it, I'm willing to do that for top games, but I need to know that it will be archived and available for me down the road. I can't pay for it when it's live, go to watch it Sunday, and they go, oh, it's not archived, can't watch it.
Yeah. We understand the challenges. If anybody that you would talk to understands NAIA challenges, you and I are the forefront of that. Believe me. I mean, you've been in administration. I have worked, believe me, I know a lot.
Yeah.
And I know the challenges. So, we understand that. At the same time, make it available. I mean, somehow, some way. And again, not just for us, it's for everyone.
I would love it if I just, and I'll probably send the email, but if the NAIA coaches said, yeah, we'll just, send the all-22 to your
email
huddle.
to us. Yeah.
I mean, I'll do that, but I don't want that. My mindset is give me the broadcast version.
Sure.
That's all I want. Show me single camera broadcast version. I'm 100% fine with that.
I love the all-22 as a former coach. I get see a lot more detail in different camera angles, but I am perfectly fine with live stream. And I love seeing the broadcasts. I think these schools do a wonderful job. And I am a proponent of that. And it's been, for whatever reason, Jason, there's always one or two a week, but this week was unbelievable. Like none of them. And it was real frustrating. So I appreciate some of my contacts giving me some film, at least to have some knowledge of at least one game from the film standpoint.
And to be fair, I have not reached out ever to say, hey, team XYZ, your game's not up, archived. Could you send me the film? So to be fair, I have never requested that. So now if I start getting told no on that, then I'm just going to be like, well, then what do you want me to do? You want me to just read a box score? I mean, these people in the chat over here, the viewers that we get every week. I mean, we're getting 700-800 viewers on X. We're getting a couple hundred on Instagram. We're getting a couple hundred on Facebook. We're getting 300 to 500 on YouTube. You just want me to tell these people, hey, guess what we're going to do from now on? We're just going to read you box scores. Wow, what entertainment that would be. And Pat and I talk about, when we had beers and ate food together 20 years ago. Like those get old after a while, even for Pat and I to tell the same story.
Our charisma can take over. Absolutely.
I mean, that is true.
Our charisma can take over. Let's be really honest. But we like talking about the actual games, and you know the game. You kind of sell yourself short. You play that whole role, but you know the game well. When you're watching games, you have a great analysis and a good eye for what you're seeing and evaluating these teams and these games. And I've obviously been on that side of it, so it's important. And I think it's something we've got to look at and have a solution, moving forward. And I'm sure the playoffs are going to be the same way, Jason. I mean, it's going to get even more challenging in those games. We start getting fewer and fewer games. We want to really sit down and analyze those things. So it's a big deal moving forward. We've got to find a solution. And I think we may have to tap into our resources and connections to maybe do that. So I'm willing to do whatever, and I know you will as well. And between the both of us, I think we can figure a way.
Maybe we'll be able to get one game film a week we can actually watch.
Yeah.
How about that? All right, top 25. Here's how it went. Kaiser Warner canceled. They're playing Southeastern. Southeastern's game this week that they had with Florida Memorial was canceled. Grandview had a bye. We talked about Indiana Wesleyan, Marian. We talked about Bethel. Dort beat Mount Marty on Friday night. If you want to just talk about how screwy this week was, Dort and Mount Marty played on Friday. Dort gets the victory there. They remain undefeated in the Great Plains Athletic Conference. The rest of the top 10, St. Thomas bye. Montana Tech, Montana Western, where we talked about. Morningside blows out Hastings 52-7. We talked about the Marian game. Benedictine, guess what? They had a bye. We already talked about Montana Tech. Southern Oregon blows out Rocky Mountain 54-14. This game was tight early on. Texas Wesleyan, they had a bye. College of Idaho beats Arizona Christian. A little tighter game than what I thought. There's going to be more points put up by Arizona Christian. Mid-American Nazarene, guess what? Bye. They had a bye. Georgetown beats Faulkner. Evangel bye. Baker bye. St. Xavier beats Defiance 45-14. Kind of cruised through that one. Dickinson State early on. They were tight against Dakota State, but pulled away 38-21. Southwestern bye. Friends bye. Lindsey Wilson loses to Cumberland at a game that we already featured in Ottawa of Arizona. Beats Simpson 76-14. Any of those other top 25 games, Pat, as I kind of cruise through them there, stand out to you? Any one we need to hit on?
Nope.
It was a week. It was a week is what it was. I mean, there were 3-4 really good games. And then kind of the rest of the schedule and everybody going through the reset. I mean, the one thing I do like about this, especially, for the KCAC and the Heart, they do that crossover. They play all those crossover games, and then they kind of have that built-in bye week to get yourself right. Because now, from here on out, if you win here on out in those conferences, you're probably in the postseason. So it's very important for those teams. So we get into this week. Well, by the way, these teams still undefeated, Campbellsville and Southeastern. Neither of them played. Our NAIA featured games for this week. Here's the big ones. As we put this week behind us, we put the short week behind us, the 26 games, all the buys, everybody out, having pina coladas on a Saturday night. Well, now you got to get back to work, right? Friends in Southwestern, kind of been waiting for this one. Two undefeated teams of the KCAC. And kind of, this is a game that will allow a Taylor, a Campbellsville, a Cumberland to potentially get into the top 25 now, because we're going to have a loss in that last half of the top 25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking forward to this. I mean, again, from a standing standpoint, these are the top two, correct? I'm sorry, I don't have the standings right in front of me. I assume so. So again, the automatic qualifier, obviously, that's a huge part of this. Huge game. Is that arguably the biggest game so far in the conference now that we're getting into it. So, it's a really big one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. You're going to have a real run-style offense coming from Friends University, Southwestern, a little bit more balance there. The Mound Builders get this game at home. It is a little – we're not talking about a whole lot of travel in the KCAC, but, Southwestern is a tougher place to play than maybe some of the other sites in the KCAC. So we're looking forward to this one, looking forward to getting into some real KCAC conference action. We go back to the Mid-States Football Association, and we get to see Indiana Wesleyan, who we've got a lot of fans on the stream for Indiana Wesleyan. We thank you. Going to Taylor, and you saw a football game at Taylor. You've seen Taylor play a couple games this year via film and live in person. This is a game, it's tough to say. I mean, because nobody really has tested Indiana Wesleyan in the conference the way we wanted them to yet. Could Taylor?
Yes. I'm going to say for this reason. It's at Taylor. This will be a awesome environment, just absolutely cool. I may take a trip down there even.
There you go.
So we'll see. We'll see. I think this is going to be a great one. Here's the caveat to that. I'm hearing there's quarterback injuries at Taylor.
Okay.
So I don't know that. I don't want to spread rumors. I think that the quarterbacks are banged up. But I tell you what, they played a great football game the last time they were out. They're all coming off a bye week. I hope that is.
And real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I screwed up the slide. The game's at Indiana Wesleyan.
Okay. They're
my bad, everyone. My bad.
15,
my bad. Stop yelling at me, everyone.
Sorry. 15 minutes apart. So it's another great environment. So, and Taylor will travel well. Obviously, campuses are 15 minutes apart, maybe.
It's been a minute since I've been that direction, but are they like literally on the same east-west road? Okay,
same east-west. Yeah, like literally of I-69, which is the main through, like the road from Fort Wayne to Indianapolis. You have Taylor on the east side of 69. You have Marian, Indiana, where Indiana Wesleyan is located, is west of I-69. They're right there. I mean, literally, you can take the same exit and get there. So very, very close. They've been a rival in all sports forever. Faith-based institution. It's just a whole lot of rivalry there and history there with these schools. I will say, I think Wesleyan, like I mentioned before, outside the state of Florida, is the best team east of the Mississippi. It's not, I don't think it's even close right now. But Taylor coming off a bye, if they can figure out that quarterback position, and I hope, I would love to see the young man that played, was a true freshman against St. Francis and played unbelievably. I know he got banged up at the end of that game. I hope he's back and healthy, because I'd love to see Taylor with a full complement of players. And that system, Jason, offensive system, is a challenge to prepare for and defend. And here's Taylor been sitting here for 2 weeks prepping for Iowa. I'm not saying that's going to make, that this is going to be a Taylor victory. I don't think, again, I say this, of course, they've blown out everybody, but I think this is a good game. I really do. I think it will be, because I think Taylor is, I'm going to say it. I mean, Marian beat him in overtime, right?
Yep.
I think it's a coin flip who the best team between those two is, for who's the second best team in the Mid-States Football Association. And there's still a game with, St. Francis and Marian coming down the pike. Who's the second, who's the third best team in that league? In my opinion, I think it's Taylor. I've had an eye test. I have evaluated these teams. I think Taylor's pretty darn good, Jason. And I don't think they beat Indiana Wesleyan this week, but I don't think they lose again. I'm serious. If they can get, some semblance of consistency at quarterback with some of the issues with injuries, I think that's the key element. But I love the way this team plays, and they're extremely well coached. They play with everything they've got, everything. And coming off that bye week, I think it's a huge deal, where I think this game is more competitive, maybe, with Taylor coming off a bye week.
So the two things I will say about this game, based on what I've seen from Taylor, and I'm just basing this off Taylor, I think for who Indiana Wesleyan has played in the Mid-States Football Association so far, I think Taylor is going to give them the most resistance for the longest period of time in this game. Is that all 4 quarters? It might be an awesome game. Is it for 3 quarters? Is it for 2 quarters? Because they haven't had much resistance past 2 quarters. I think Taylor is going to give them the most resistance in this game. I don't know if it'll end up being the closest of those. I don't know if Taylor will end up getting the victory. My money, I don't put money on NAIA games. That'd be silly. But my gut, obviously, I think Indiana Wesleyan's going to win this. They're going to win it by a couple scores. But I'm not rooting for Taylor. I'm not rooting for any, but I'm rooting for a good game, because one, it'll help sharpen Indiana Wesleyan. It'll help sharpen Taylor for the rest of the season, because both those teams could potentially be in the postseason. Now, I did have one in the chat here for you, Pat. I don't know if you can see this pop up. Just one.
Ivanhoe's is a state treasure, regional treasure. It's a great point, Eric. You're absolutely right. I have 100%. If I would take, my excuse would be if I took one of my kids, like, hey, we got to go to Ivanhoe's, get ice cream. Oh, yeah. So it's an excuse for me. Going by yourself's kind of pathetic, going to Ivanhoe's.
Is it just an ice cream shop? Is that what it is?
No, it is like an old school, like throwback, diner type. But it has, I don't know. Eric will probably have to help me with this. It's like 50 different combinations of like milkshakes and sundaes. They get real creative with stuff. It's cool. It's just a throwback. You feel like you're in 1960. And they've been around. I'm certainly around that time. I think that it's right across the street from campus. That's such a cool place. My kids love it. Every time we go to a game there, it's got to be a must. So it's a great point.
Love it.
I love your point though, Jason. Going back to this real quick. Your point is so spot on about how I think Taylor can give Indiana Wesleyan the most competition for the longest period because of that character, because of I think how they're constructed in that they are such a tough, they're physical, they believe, man. I mean, they're a high character group, and I'm anxious for this one. I really am. Again, I'm not making any bold predictions. At the same time, I love your take, and I think you're spot on that this is going to be the most competitive, I think, at least the Mid-States Football Association thus far, that Indiana Wesleyan will see. I'm going to bring out one more point. I think this is a huge thing for Indiana Wesleyan that they blew out Marian. Because I think if they're an emotional victory, let's say it's a fourth quarter, Indiana Wesleyan wins by 10 points or, a touchdown against Marian, which we kind of predicted we thought would happen. I think that's a huge advantage for Taylor. Coming off, Indiana Wesleyan playing that emotional game and physical, it wasn't. So yeah. I think advantage Iowa in that regard, going into the Taylor game. But Taylor does come off the bye week, so it's interesting. There's a lot of background stories and things like that are factors certainly. But no, it's going to be a good one. I firmly believe that. Of course, I said that about the Marian Indiana Wesleyan game. I thought that was going to be a good one, but cue up your dry heaving sound that you had from last week. Oh boy. The blowout.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry. The other one, number 1, Kaiser taking on Southeastern. I've got Southeastern in my top 25. The coaches don't. They're probably rated 20 through 30 team right now. This will be a game that'll give them an opportunity maybe to prove themselves a little bit, Pat. And Southeastern's a team not many people know about, but you have to understand they started off the season with a 34-0 win over Faulkner. They then beat a rated Reinhardt team 28-10. They beat University of Fort Lauderdale 37-0, but then they beat Weber International 45-0 before the game this week they were supposed to have with Florida Memorial, which was canceled due to the hurricane. They're now going to play Kaiser, who had their game this week canceled due to the hurricane. So 2 weeks to get healthy for both of these teams, even though they were preparing for games on Saturday. Kaiser canceled the game a lot earlier in the week, so they kind of shipped their focus then to Southeastern at that point. So this could be a real test for Kaiser and, a barometer reading for where Southeastern is. Is Southeastern and the Sun Conference in general getting deeper, getting better? Are they going to provide some resistance to Kaiser? Or is this a game that Kaiser's going to come out and roll and we're going to go, oh, yeah, I guess it is just Kaiser and St. Thomas in the Sun Conference. I think Southeastern's going to give them some resistance. The conference is getting better. Southeastern's a team a couple years ago was in the NAIA postseason. So this is a team that has had some success. They just have kind of been forgotten about because of how Kaiser and St. Thomas have kind of taken over the lead in that conference. So I don't think you should sleep on this game. I think it'll be a good one.
No, I totally agree. And I wonder, really Southeastern of the Sun Conference schools, they were really right in that line of the hurricane, being in Central Florida there. So hopefully everything is okay there. I'm sure they've had a lot of issues and distractions, certainly. And I know that's a resilient group and, well-coached program and all that. So I'm looking forward to this one because I agree with you, Jason. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Southeastern because, like you said, they have been a playoff team. They've been around a little longer than Kaiser. I would say they probably year 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
Being a part of the NAIA, great facility down there in Central Florida. I'm looking forward to this one because, like you said, can there be another team in that Sun Conference that can show that this is a deeper conference than what we may have thought at the beginning of the season?
Kaiser got a lot of All-Americans on that team. They returned Shea Spencer, of course, at quarterback. Jaden Meisinger, no update really on his health, but I haven't reached out on it. He did leave the game against St. Thomas late with an injury. Andrew Burnett at the other running back position. You got DeAndre Golden. You've got the Van Greats kid. I mean, there's a lot of good football players for Kaiser. You might not know a whole lot about Southeastern. Like Kaiser, they are a team that is going to be successful depending on how they run the football. They average 210 yards per game running the football. They're only throwing for about 150 yards per game, so they're a little more run dominant than what Kaiser or than what people would maybe think they would be. They're a lot more like Kaiser, a lot more like that. You think Florida football, you think fun and gun and throwing the ball all over. The three best teams, they run the ball pretty dang good down there.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good one. Looking forward to this one.
Other games to keep your eye on this week, you got Georgetown going to Cumberland, who Cumberland, just gets a big win this last week over Bethel. They got a chance to prove themselves against Georgetown and show if the Phoenix deserve to be at the top of the top of the Mid-South Conference. A great one between the Tigers and Cumberland, and Georgetown has to travel for this one.
Right. And Georgetown's in that cusp, Jason. They can't drop another one.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like I know they lost to was it Alabama A&M or something like
Alabama
that?
A&M and lost to Montana Tech. Yep.
So 2 losses, yeah, just 2 losses, 3-2.
But a very close game against Pikeville and a very close game against Reinhardt.
Right. I mean, Georgetown's got some things figured out when they need to. That's a Final Four team from a year ago, and I know they expect more of themselves. So, this is a great challenge, and this has got to be a game they play well in, certainly on the road.
Yep, and then you got St. Xavier going to St. Francis. This is a bit of a rivalry game in the Chicagoland area. You got St. Francis just out of the top 25. They're going to go against St. Xavier, who is teetering on the edge of if they should remain in the top 25. St. Xavier drops this game, they're probably out of the top 25. St. Francis might get the opportunity to pop back in there. A nice rivalry game that's been very one-sided. St. Xavier has won the majority of the games in this rivalry, but it's as close as you can get to a rivalry game NAIA football in the Chicagoland area.
Oh, this is the Coach Feminist Cup.
Yes.
What do you call it? Yeah, Coach Fem played. There was a great All-American linebacker at St. Francis, Illinois back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I think Coach Newell also went there as well. So these guys are all St. Francis Fighting Saints, and they're the St. Xavier coaches. So interesting, yeah. And the staffs are very close, and it's a good rivalry. This is going to be an interesting one as well. I think the winner of this game is definitely on a different level in the Mid-States West, certainly.
I can't remember if Gordy Gillespie was his football coach or if he was just because he was coaching football and baseball at St. Francis, Illinois. For those of you that just went, how Gordy Gillespie, where's that come? If you don't know the name, Google it. Just one of the all-around great coaches in general in high school and college athletics. And
he was also featured in a film, Rudy.
Yes, Rudy. Not accurately from what I have.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
but he was portrayed as Coach Gillespie, I think, as Rudy's high school coach in Joliet.
Yes,
Academy, I believe, right?
Yep. Because I think he was more of the encourager coach, and the coach in the movie is more like, "You'll never get there, kid."
Fire and brimstone, yeah.
Yeah, one of those wasn't really accurate. All right, we move on to another game to keep your eye on. Campbellsville, undefeated, going to Lindsey Wilson, who will drop out of the top 25 this week. This is a get-right game for Lindsey Wilson and the Blue Raiders. If they want to keep their season on track, get an opportunity for the postseason, they got to win this. Campbellsville, they want to stay at the top of the Mid-South Conference and then potentially get into the top 25. They need to win this game. A fantastic one in the Mid-South Conference.
I'm the biggest Campbellsville Fighting Tigers fan.
You are.
So I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I've been on the bandwagon, baby. And this is a trophy game, I think. Have they started a trophy game? Because these
think it is.
It's whatever that is, the highway that connects the two. I've seen that before. Yeah. I don't think I've made that up. So a rivalry game. Lindsey Wilson's not been around all that long, but been around long enough, and there's certainly proximity with the schools that this is a rivalry. Two very good teams, top 25 level teams. And again, I'm the biggest Campbellsville fan, so I'm excited about this one.
I love it. You're going to get yourself some maroon and gray put on Saturday. Be watching this one. It's going to be great. Go. Mayville State at Dickinson State. You might look at this and go, Mayville and Dickinson, why is this a game to keep your eye on? Because Dickinson holds control of the conference right now. And there's really only one team left that could challenge for a conference tie, even if Dickinson were to slip up later in the season and lose a game in the North Star Athletic Association. And Mayville is the team that kind of has got that upper hand right now, even though they've lost to Dickinson once this year. If they win this game, then we get into tiebreaker scenarios, and you could be talking Mayville potentially for the at-large out of the Northern Sun. But none of that matters if Mayville doesn't win this game. That's why I say keep your eye on this game. I think Dickinson is going to handle this game, but Mayville, hey, credit to them, 4-2, much improved as a program. Rocky Larson's done a great job at that with the Comets.
Keep your eye on it.
Keep your eye on it. And then in the KCAC, you got Bethel and McPherson going up against one another. There is no fear in McPherson, by the way.
I know you didn't make that. You didn't make that up.
I did not make that up. So I'll finish this game, then I'll tell this. So McPherson has played very well this season. They've kind of come out of the gate strong. They have an opportunity to maybe get an at-large into the NAIA postseason. They need this win. Bethel also started off the same way, very hot. Lost a couple games. They could get themselves back on track, challenge for a conference title. But the winner of this game is definitely going to get the upper hand, so keep your eye on it. So I'm from Nebraska, and there's a county, McPherson County, and there's a McPherson the town, and everywhere in my life that was pronounced McPherson. First time I go to McPherson College, I go, well, I'm just glad to be here at McPherson, and they just kind of dead eye me and they go, there is no fear in McPherson. I'm like, what? And they're like, that's how you pronounce it. It's McPherson, not McPherson. Right. I'm like, oh, I'm the idiot. Thank you. Appreciate that.
What's the whole thing? Dana? I mean,
yeah, I couldn't complain because I went to Dana College. Dana. Like, how do you spell it? You spell it Dana is how you spell Dana.
Yeah. Or Benedictine, Benedictine. I mean, there's a few in there.
Yeah, there's a few that get a little particular, which I still continue to screw up, and it's just because of my lack of brain cells up here to remember all that stuff. So, anything else, Pat, in the world of NAIA football? We got a couple questions to get to here on the side, and we got a few minutes to get into some overtime.
We've already hit some overtime topics, right?
We have. Overtime came at halftime, I think.
Yeah, right. Probably my fault.
But this is it's completely fine. This gives Pat and I the opportunity to answer some of the questions that have come in on the chat and kind of shore some things up. I did get a good comment from Fred here earlier. We talked a lot about, for those of you maybe joining this show late live and didn't catch where we kind of talked about, hey, we sure would like to see more film out there if possible. Fred brings up a great question. What about talking to the NAIA leadership about the issue so it could be a national effort to change the live stream issue? That is tough because the NAIA national office doesn't really have a say in anything that the colleges and conferences do for their streaming until it gets to the championships. They recently announced a partnership with a new streaming partner. The championships are what the NAIA controls. So working with the NAIA leadership won't do much. And it's tough because I know conferences that have networks, whether it be the Sun, the Heart, the GPAC, the KCAC has a network too, right? Yeah. Anyway, they all have networks. They all go through Huddle. But even within the conference, there is not a set and defined standard of what we will do. Some of the teams archive. Some of the teams don't archive. Some of the teams charge. Some of the teams don't charge. And that's different at every school in the conference. So it really needs to start at the conference level to say, hey, this is our conference network, and here's what everyone is going to do. And if everyone is not archiving, that's fine. I guess I'll deal with that and find another way to be able to see some of these games down the road. But the frustration that Pat and I have is when there's a game that hasn't been charged for the entire year, or a school that has archived every single one of their games for the entire year, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to go watch it. It's not out there. So.
Right. I mean, I was horribly ill prepared, Jason. I mean, I went to the St. Francis Lawrence Tech game yesterday, and I had my whole Saturday night planned. Like, I was going to come home and have Ohio State and Oregon on the television, but I was going to watch NAIA football games last night. And I kind of had my routine in the afternoons as well. So I put games on. I couldn't care less about some of the NFL games, I'll be very honest with you. Here, I got to watch the Indianapolis Colts, which I'd rather fall asleep. So I'd rather watch NAIA football games, very truthfully. And just didn't have that ability today. So I had to, have another option, if you will.
Question came in. If Taylor loses, do they still have a chance for the playoffs? Yeah, 2-loss team. They have to win out. Some things have got to go really well for them. later in the season, but I'd say they would. Pat, you?
I think so, because I've seen them play. I think they're that level. I do. Yeah, you don't beat the teams that they've beaten. Excuse me, have been competitive with, and again, arguably could have beaten Marian, certainly, and they made a decision to go in overtime and go for two. You don't do those things without earning that respect and being in the conversation for. So I definitely think that they need to be discussed very, very legitimately. And this weekend has a lot to do with it. I think if they're competitive, Jason, they'd still drop this game against the top 3 team with Indiana Wesleyan. I think it still helps them and gives them that consideration of getting in as an at-large.
Absolutely. Another question. What about the decision to go for a fake punt in the Cumberland-Lindsey Wilson game? Boneheaded call or no? I'm going to tell you, didn't get the opportunity to see it. But you will not hear me deeply question the calls of NAIA coaches, because it's just like any football game. If you make it, everybody thinks it's the greatest play call in the world. This guy, probably going to be coaching in the SEC next year. He was such a great play call. It doesn't work out. What a bonehead. Let's fire this guy. I'm not saying they're saying that, but you're not going to hear me question a lot of what's happened at the NAIA level in terms of play calls, because I also don't know personnel. I don't know staff. Maybe there's somebody hurt on defense. We can't afford to give them the ball back. We got to keep it. All those sort of things. So another question from the chat. Tell us about Texas College or North American, what they need to do to be consistent. Starts with the administration. Starts with any of these schools that struggle to win football games each and every year at the NAIA level. Starts with the administration, giving the school institutional support for the football program. And I'm not saying that in terms of money, dollars. We need a new field. We need a new stadium. We need new jerseys. We need new lights. No, institutional support for scholarshiping your team is one. Institutional support to keep the student athletes around that come to your school, because there's a lot of kids that love playing football at the NAIA level, whether that be Texas College or North American, and they get into a situation where maybe they're not getting the institutional support from the academic side, and they say this just isn't the right place for me. You've got to have that institutional support from top to bottom if you're a program that is not very good or losing games to get better, because you will not get better and you will not be competitive in the NAIA without upperclassmen and people that have been around the program to build a culture. Yeah, you can bring in some stud that's going to run for 1,000 yards this year. That's great. He's gone the next year. You got to do it with guys who are going to be around for a long time. Pat, your thoughts?
You nailed it 100%. It definitely comes from the institutions. And all these schools are not created equal in what maybe their values are or where they are with support. I mean, people love the idea. Like, we see some of these new NAIA schools that are starting, and people love the idea. Oh, we got to have a football team. That sounds like a lot of fun. We can bring more males on campus. Maybe it's a female dominant school. You can
we'll have a homecoming. We'll have a homecoming football game.
That's not the other football. It's American tackle football. Those are all things that even I have experience with, being around my father starting a program. But you have to understand what you're getting yourself into, in that you want to do it the right way. You just don't do it, with half effort. I can use another term there. You don't do it half effort. You just don't. You have a plan. I will tell you, and I wish we could have more time with my dad this summer talking about it. The original plan at St. Francis was to do it very half effort. And he said, this isn't going to work. I think he may have mentioned it a little bit, not specifically. But he goes, it's not going to work if you're not going to do it the right way. And these are the things. I mean, he listed the things that he thought were essential for success. And whether it be naivete or just faith in my father, they listened and they did it right. Look at the end result of the program for the last 27 years. And you see it with Kaiser. You see it with St. Thomas. And Southeastern really made a splash early on. Faulkner made a huge splash when they first started. Reinhardt, all those schools have done it. And I visited those places. We played against those teams. I've seen them. If I didn't play them directly, I've seen them on film. You see the support. You see the great facilities. You see the fan base. There's excitement around it. Like you talked about retaining players, it's an administrative thing. It's an institutional thing to make it important. And that's 100%. And I can use an example, and you can say Texas College or North American, but Madonna, it was horrible timing, but at the same time, they've not had continuity with coaches. It's a tough deal. So again, I don't know all the details if there's administrative, challenges or neglect of some sort. But I can tell you, you've been in administration. I've been in the football world for many, many years and seen it firsthand. There has to be that support. It has to matter to the institution. And really, when you start it in these programs, the Texas College went away and came back, didn't they? I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jason.
No, they went away a long time ago, but they've been back since mid 2000s or whatever that was, 2003, 2004.
But at the same time, there has to be the commitment to do it right. And again, it's got to be fully funded. I will tell you this. I don't know, and I'd love to do a study on this. This is probably an off-season discussion of, are there teams that aren't fully funded in the NAIA that are still having success? I bet they're few and far between. Meaning fully funded are they at the full scholarship allotment with the affiliation? That's why I consider fully funded when it comes to a scholarship commitment standpoint. I don't know any that can do it with half the amount or 3/4 the amount of what's allotted. It's almost impossible because these are private schools. These are expensive schools. You're not getting in-state tuition. It's not a state school. I mean, most of these aren't state schools. I mean, there's a few I know. But it's incredibly expensive. So you have to make it affordable to play at this level. So you have to have the financial part of it. And then, like you said, the retention component as well, that you're retaining them and you're keeping them here. And of course, we're dealing with the NIL and all that nonsense now. But at the heart of it, you've got to make it important to the students.
Yes.
To the players, no doubt.
Yeah, I like what you said. You've got to be fully funded. Yeah, and you have to have, there should be a class that should be taught to anybody that is looking at adding a football program or that has and maybe hasn't had success, because there's certain things that you should do. One, fully fund the scholarship side. That's 24 scholarships. Also know how to recruit good student athletes that will not count against that number. You get guys with a 3.6 GPA, they're a non-counter. You get people that, 3.3 is a half counter then.
Right.
So now all of a sudden you've got smart kids on your team that want to stick around, that have got good scholarships, and then, usually good students, good leaders. Now all of a sudden you have this big thing that's going to, make your program that much more successful, because you've got 10 kids on your team that don't even count towards your scholarship limit because they have good teams. Look at the best teams in the NAIA. For people out there, look and Google it. Go to the NAIA Scholar Athlete last year. Look at all the teams that had NAIA Scholar Athletes and consider that probably everybody on that list is a non-counter. You got to have a 3.5 to be on that list. If you have a 3.6, you're a non-counter. If you're a 3.5, you're a half counter. But go look at that, and then look at the best teams in the NAIA and look at how many kids they have on there. There's a ton. Like, I'll guarantee, like, Morningside has 9 or 10. Indiana Wesleyan has 9 or 10. St. Francis probably has 9 or 10. Like, all the best teams have that. And then you look at the programs that maybe aren't as good, and they don't have very many NAIA Scholar Athletes. Well, guess what? That means you're paying full price for every one of those kids against a scholarship limit. We're
Just
really getting inside baseball here.
Yeah. First-hand experience. I've coached in 5 national championship games, Jason. Those teams that were part of those championship runs, tons and tons of exemptions. I mean, we were basically playing with, we had our 24, but my goodness, we had another 20 plus, 25 plus of exemptions. Not full, combination of full and half. We had just unbelievable GPAs. I mean, our teams at 16 and 17, I mean, Nick Ferrer's National Player of the Year, guy never had anything below a 3.9 in a semester. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, and you have a whole laundry list of guys just like that. Our center was a guy that was up for the Remington, didn't end up winning it. I thought, you got to vote to that guy. He's going to be a doctor. I mean, he was a 4.0 guy. I mean, so you have those guys, like you said, and from a strategic standpoint, the way you recruit, that's a huge, huge part of it, no doubt. And it's a cool thing the NAIA does too, because that separates us from other levels of football too.
100%. Let's get to a few other actual football questions. What the playoff schedule? They'll likely put number 1 Kaiser against St. Thomas in an early round. Seems not fair. It does seem not fair, but look at D3, look at D2, look at the FCS. There are regional round games and how these get paired up. FCS might be different now, but I know in D2 and D3, it's still very regionally based. They're not sending Mount Union to California or California to Mountain Union. Like, it's all based in the region. So I would love in a perfect world not to have to deal with that, Pat, but I have not hit Powerball, and it was not $1 billion winner. Because if I did, like, I would help eliminate that. But it's just, there's too much cost.
Too much cost. That's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. It's too much cost. Even before we had this expanded playoff, round 1 was still very regional. It was. I mean, it wasn't written that way or spoken that way, but it 100% was. You have to limit costs as much as possible and do more bus trips than flights. I mean, just all there is to it.
Yeah, and you can't say, okay, we're going to have 8 games this round. Let's make sure we have 6 charter flights on hold in case we need to use them. Oh, we don't need to use any of them. Well, then it's never going to happen. So unfair, but that's just how it goes. What we got here? Do you think the Frontier Conference could be considered the SEC of NAIA football? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You people are baiting. Your people are baiting me, is what you're doing, because I hate. Listen.
Yeah.
I will say in here, the Frontier Conference is the strongest conference in NAIA football.
Totally agree.
I hate the comparison to any conference, not the SEC, not just the SEC with Pac-12, SEC, Big 12, blah, blah, blah. It's not comparable because one, I'm going to hurt some feelings. Just bump my table here. I'm going to hurt some feelings when I say this. The SEC's won some national championships in the last couple of years, and the Frontier Conference hasn't. So if you want to be the SEC of NAIA football, you better win some. Oh, we beat one another up every week. We beat one. Guess what? So does the SEC, and they still win national titles, and it was only a 4-team playoff. So stop with the comparison. Sorry.
Fact. All facts.
I like this.
They're real good.
Frontier Conference is the Pac-Man Conference. They eat each other up until the last one standing. 100%.
I like that comparison, certainly.
Yeah, 100%. I like that.
But
I just don't like the NAIA comparisons to D1 football. Just for the fact, like, we'll make our own story, and then if like you're calling yourself that now, well, guess what? What happens in like 4 years if the SEC, it probably won't, but let's just say if the SEC wasn't as strong, well, then what? Now you're the second strongest conference. You're the strongest conference in NAIA football. The Frontier Conference is the Frontier Conference of NAIA football. I mean, you should aspire to have people say that. Oh, the HAC could become the next Frontier Conference of NAIA football. Because, I mean, the Frontier has just been that way for so long. Okay, all right.
Yep.
What do we got? USF holds MSFA record, 766 yards in game, 2018 versus St. Ambrose. Do you know whose record you broke? Let me think.
MSFA record.
MSFA record.
Would it be like a Finley?
Yards.
Might be like a Finley.
I don't think Finley put up that many. I want to say it was a St. Xavier. I want to say there's a St. Xavier game. I want to say there's a St. Xavier game, late 2000s, early 2010s maybe, where they put up 700 and some yards. Eric, you're going to have to hit us in the comments because, I mean, I could Google it, but
do we break a St. Francis record with a St. Francis record? Because we had some games in the 7s I remember before. No big deal.
It's possible.
Just a humble brag there. No big deal.
So while he's maybe messaging us who the actual record was that you broke, or maybe he's asking because he doesn't know. We may never get this. It just reminds me, I'll go back to my Dana College playing days and how horrible we were. And for those of you that don't like coarse language, you can sign off the show now. I'm going to say a bad word here, but I'm quoting the great defensive coordinator Larry Brown, who was a great coach. He just had horrible players like me to work with. We're playing Midland. It's my sophomore year. I've been on defense 4 games. We played Hastings the week before. We gave up, and this was the Mark Borichter Hastings College Broncos. Bo Richter ended up playing for the Chiefs. Josh Miller, quarterback. Travis Soucy, running back. They were loaded. They were number 1 team in the country, and then they got beat by Azusa Pacific that year. Anyway, I digress. We play them. That was my first game on defense. We gave up 768 yards, 814 yards. I think it was 800 and some yards we gave up. We were bad. We lost like 70-14.
You're playing Will or Mike, and you're just getting trucked.
I'm just playing Mike. Just
sticking your head in there.
Oh, and the reason, so we got beat so bad that game, but because of my effort in that game, that's what led me to start the games after that, because I was like the only one trying to chase down the All-American running back from 50 yards back. Everybody else had just quit. So anyway, we go into the locker room. 3 weeks later, we're playing Midland. We're down 35-0 at halftime, maybe 35-10. Coach Brown comes in. Everybody gets quiet. And we're waiting for the fiery Coach Brown to give us a pep talk. And Coach Brown, at this point, has got cancer. I think he only lived maybe 1 year past that, 2 years past that. Kind of shuffles into the locker room. He's got these thick glasses, balding, kind of frail man. Just kind of looks around. Are we the worst goddamn defense in the nation? Guys, I've been watching the box scores for 3 weeks. Nobody gives up 800 yards in a goddamn football game. And we're going to do it twice in the same season. You guys figure it out. He walks out.
Oh,
now, mind you, we came back in that game, and I think we only lost 42-35, but we played a much better second half.
Fighting Vikings.
And one, Johnny All-American goes, you know what, guys? That's a challenge. And another guy goes, it's the truth. I have no idea why we were 3-8. We had such good character. Sorry. So those were the bad words. I'm sorry, Pat.
It's okay. No, it doesn't offend me. I worry about the Indiana Wesleyan Taylor fans.
Well, I warned them.
You prefaced
the listenership didn't pop off there. So Eric Watson can't find it. Somebody Google it to us. We've had enough overtime. We've gone way over overtime.
Way overtime.
Last question. Is there any way Indiana Wesleyan moves to number 2 in the coaching poll? I don't think so. Just because Grandview is undefeated and Indiana Wesleyan, while you're playing great, we'll go back to it. You lost to Valpo. You have a loss on your record.
2-4 Valpo.
2 yeah. It'd be different if difference. I keep saying difference. It'd be different if this was the Harbaugh coached University of San Diego Pioneer League teams when they were just wrecking shop and they were non-scholarship. But like the Pioneer League and FCS is not good. They will make the postseason. They will get beat by 60 in the first round by North Dakota State or Missouri Valley State.
It's not going to be Valpo making the postseason. So there you go. They're not even consideration. 2-4.
Yeah.
Probably should have been 2-5. They had a game to cancel with Stetson in that same central Florida area. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate everybody's questions. There's a lot of ones that we actually didn't get to tonight, and this is awesome. We love when we have the interaction.
Love it.
But Pat and I also have families and lives we have to attend to, and we've gone well over our hour allotment that we try to keep this show at. So
we had no bet for the Raiders and Steelers tonight. It's kind of weird. Our favorite teams.
Well, I think because we knew both of our teams suck, and it was going to go either way. Guess what? The Raiders lost.
Sleeping. Yeah. The dry heave sound, the Pat and Dannelly dry heave sound for disgusting football.
No, this was absolutely great. Appreciate everybody checking out the show. We'll be back next Sunday, same time. A lot more games that we're going to go through. I mean, we talked about the featured games for the week. You see them there. That's the keep your eye on games. We got some awesome ones, some really big featured games. We're going to talk about all of those next weekend here on the Victory Sports Network. So, Pat, anything to add before we wrap things up?
No, I think the Sun Conference archives games so we can see that Kaiser Southeastern game. I'm excited.
I'll probably try to watch it live. I'm actually around the house this Saturday.
Unless I make a trip down to Marian, Indiana, where Indiana Wesleyan is.
Nice.
Be Marian, Marion.
Yes. Make sure you
Mian.
put it in the GPS correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to go buzzing right by.
I know where I'm going.
I know you.
Good show, buddy. Good job.
All right. Thanks, man. He's Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. We'll see you next week, folks. Be sure to check out the Victory Sports Network tomorrow for the new VSN NAIA Football Top 25 from yours truly and a whole lot more. Thanks, Pat. I'm Jason. We'll see you guys later. Have a good week.